Hi again, my name is Uwe Martins and welcome to my channel. It's a pleasure to be doing this again in 2026. Um, I look forward to doing more of this as we go along. And so, like I said, today we're talking about wisdom, and that is the topic for the next few weeks, I guess. Let's start out, taking some verses from the book of Proverbs, the book written by, the man that the Bible records as the wisest man that ever lived, before Jesus, of course, King Solomon himself. And we're talking about Proverbs chapter 1 from verse 1 to 7, where he talks about the different pillars of wisdom. He talks about getting wisdom, wisdom being the principal thing, and urging that in all you're getting, you should get wisdom. He also talks about the pillars of wisdom, 7 of them, and I'm going to talk through each of them in this video. The first pillar we'll talk about is instruction, and this basically refers to, the act of being guided, being directed to do something. When that happens, it means you are learning. And in essence, it also means you have to be teachable. Instructions have to come and learning has to happen for you to be able to have and demonstrate wisdom. I feel like this is one of the reasons it is the very first pillar that is listed. The second pillar is understanding. So it's not enough to receive instruction. And like I said, with learning going on, you also need to be able to understand. And what does it mean? It means being able to make sense of what is being said, making sense of what is being taught to you. So understanding. If you do not understand a thing, if you don't understand what is being said, why it is being said, and all of the context around it that would help you make a decision or that would make it sink in, then it's, you cannot be said to have gotten understanding of that matter. Even imagine somebody speaking to you in a language you do not speak. All right, so you cannot understand, you cannot comprehend. So understanding is comprehending, being able to make logical sense of what has been said. The third pillar is prudence. And with prudence, I think one of the simplest ways to describe it is, when you're talking about caution, okay, you're being cautious in day-to-day life. Caution meaning that you don't just do what feels good in the moment. All right, you're thinking about the future. You're thinking about, the impact of what your actions could have. This requires you to have foresight. Foresight means seeing ahead, thinking ahead. Imagine you're trying to make a decision and you're somebody that has prudence. So what that does is you're thinking about it and say, okay, if I take this path, what could happen? And if that happens, what am I going to do? Okay. And vice versa. If I do not take this path, what could happen? And what's the impact of that on me? Pillar number 4 is knowledge. What's knowledge? Information, fact. I mean, I know some people would say not every piece of information is accurate. That's true. But even knowing that in itself is knowledge. So knowledge has to do with the information you have, what you know, okay, the skills you have acquired. Sometimes you ask somebody about something and the person says, oh no, I don't have any knowledge of that. Or you go to somebody and you're asking about something and says, oh, go ask for instance. Oh, she has knowledge about that particular subject. So that's knowledge. And so that's, asking you what you know. It's not possible to not know anything. You need to know something to be able to act wisely. What are you trying to make a decision about? What's the scope of decisions that you may have to face this year or even in a day? Okay? Do you know about them? Do you know what they entail? That's why knowledge is one of the pillars of wisdom. So pillar number 5, discretion. What does that mean? I'd say kind of like a good sense of knowing what to say or what to do in a particular situation. More often than not, it's talking about what to say. You find yourself in different situations at different times, and you're wondering to yourself, should I have said that? Or even you're in part of a conversation, you hear somebody saying, and you're wondering, should he or she have said that? Being able to know what to say and what not to say, what information to divulge and what to hold back, that's discretion. It also has to do with, managing people's information. Sometimes people come and tell you stuff, so do you go around telling everyone about it? Where I mean, in that area, we're talking about confidentiality, we're talking about, privacy, but all of it are subsumed in discretion. We move on to pillar number 6, and pillar number 6 is discernment. What does discernment mean? Discernment means knowing right or wrong. When we're talking about discretion, it's maybe right to say what you said, but with discretion, we're saying maybe the timing was just not right for it. But with discernment, it is knowing what is right or wrong, because sometimes opportunities come to you and they look good. You know the saying that not all that glitters is gold? Exactly. So when you see this and it really does look like gold, it's glittering, it has all the properties of gold. So discernment is looking well, looking deeper to say, is this really gold? It applies to somewhat to our choices. Okay, when you're thinking of something you want to do as an individual and as a child of God, most especially, you're asking yourself, is this just my choice? Is this also in line with God's choice? Is this what God wants me to do? Or is this what I just want to do? Sometimes you're in a situation and you want to know, is this God's will or is it not God's will? So discernment as one of the pillars of wisdom helps you to achieve this. And the last but not least pillar is the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord, like King Solomon puts it, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And you may be wondering, how is it the beginning of wisdom? In fact, it's also interesting how that he said it's the beginning of wisdom, but it was also the last pillar that he mentioned, which is why I said last but not least. Okay, it is definitely not the list of the pillars because all of the pillars are important, but this one is on a different level because pretty much it seems like it opens the door to everything. If it says it's the beginning of wisdom, that means that's where it starts. What does this really mean? The fear of the Lord. Definitely, as children of God, we are not supposed to be afraid of God, right? But what the fear of the Lord communicates to us has to do with reverence. Reverence, because we know who He is. We know He's a great God. We know that He is omnipresent. We know that there is nothing we say or do or even think that is hidden from Him. Just the consciousness. In a previous message, from a pastor, he was talking about Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness, God consciousness. That's the fear of the Lord. Just that awareness that, whatever it is I'm doing, whatever it is I'm thinking, God sees, God knows. All right. So when you walk like this and live like this, it opens up your life to operate in wisdom. It would prevent you from doing some things. It would remind you, it will pretty much keep you on your toes. It will make you cautious, before you do some things, you think about it because you have the fear of the Lord. It's the 7 pillars of wisdom. Let me see if I can recap. First was instruction. Second was understanding. Third was prudence. Fourth was knowledge. Fifth was discretion. Sixth was discernment. 7 was the fear of the Lord. These were the things I put in my notes from last sermon. And I want to urge you this year to go into this year with the fear of the Lord. If you were operating without it before, be more conscious of the fact that God sees you, God hears you, He knows your thoughts, He can see everything that you're doing. I hope for you and for me as well is that this year, more than ever before, we will continue to live our lives and demonstrate the wisdom of God in everything we do. Thank you for watching, and please like, subscribe, and share.